getting into a humidified room before a performance
Okay.
just to make sure that like your
Mm-hmm.
voice is properly hydrated just on an
Mm-hmm.
internal level and on an external level.
Hmm.
I would always do that. I would always have tea with honey. And before
Okay.
a performance, I
Okay.
would go out to,
That's
as just kind of a performance ritual, I would go out to this ramen place in town the night before and make sure that I got myself a chicken katsu ramen that they did. Because
Oh yeah. Okay.
I
That's
knew one of
lovely.
the guys who worked at the restaurant. He was a
Okay.
great guy, but
Hmm.
he was able to kind of under the table help me get this particular item, which was
Okay.
kind of on the secret menu. You know, you have to know somebody who works at the restaurant to get them to make it for you. If you ever change your mind about leaving me behind. Whoa, bring it to me. Bring your sweet loving. Bring it on home to me.
Okay, so let me just begin with my very first question that when did you decide to be a singer? Of all the art forms that a person could have decided, when did you realize that your aptitude lies in singing?
I think it was so when I was in a summer camp when I was quite young, around 12, we had a
That's
talent
fun.
show. I sang a song from my favorite show in the world at the time, which was Yu-Gi-Oh! They released these songs and they'd given them out as gifts with the Happy Meals at McDonald's.
Right.
And I really liked this one song, One Card Short. So I sang it for them, and the counselor said, you know, you ought to consider singing. So I kind of kept it as an interest for a long time, and then I was in choir through school.
Okay, that's like getting to know that you sing well in a summer camp is quite different, like odd. Haven't seen much people who realize their singing ability in a summer camp, but it's really nice to know that that is where. So the people and the students in the summer camp were your first audience, I could say.
Yes, indeed.
That's really nice. So, when did you decide to actually audition for The Voice? And have you auditioned for seasons before this one, and but you couldn't get through it?
It was interesting. So I had there were two kinds of two sort of events that ended up happening.
Okay.
A couple of years ago, just before the pandemic, I auditioned for The Voice. They had a live audition situation that they were
Okay.
doing at a McCormick Center here in South Chicago, and I went to that. But I played an original song for them, which they enjoyed. But then they asked me if I had anything higher energy, and not really thinking about it at the time, I just said, I kind of just blurted out, "No, I don't," because I didn't have anything prepared. But and they were like, "Awesome, we'll call you back." So I didn't get in on that season. And then a few years later, or well, just a year and a half ago, somebody reached out to me on Instagram on
Hmm.
a video of that same original song that I did in my audition for The Voice before, and asked me if I wanted to submit a packet. It was Lauren Schwartz, very, very nice lady.
Hmm.
But she reached out to me on Instagram on the basis of a video that I had posted. And I ended up going on to a different phase of the audition where I just submitted a three
Okay.
song packet for the producers directly. And that was more or less how it happened. I didn't really think anything of it. You know, like so many audition, and I didn't expect to get a call back. But then somebody called me back later on in the year and said that I was going to be on the show. So I was over the moon naturally, and I just kind of went along with it.
That's really lovely to know for having tried for the show once and then unexpectedly you get to be on the show that you always wanted to be. That must have felt really great. So, can you explain as to how did it feel when you finally realized that you would be competing for the show when the judges turned their chair for you?
It was crazy. I mean, the initial thing about it, like you know, I
Hmm.
performed a whole bunch, but the camera I think added a different dimension to the thing. Because when you're performing for a crowd, it's easy to kind of get
Hmm.
lost in the moment. But when you're staring down the barrel of that camera, and of course, while you've got four major celebrities kind of on the other end as well, it's kind of the two very big
Hmm.
pressurizing elements. But there's a release when you get up there and start singing, and like
Okay.
I think you know, in the beginning of the blind audition process, I
Hmm.
essentially just let go. I was like, I'm going
Hmm.
to sing it, and what's going to happen is going to happen. But then when Michael turned for me during the song, I was like, okay, this is real. This is going on. So I was very, I don't know, I was relieved almost to the point that I had to
Hmm.
kind of catch myself to make sure that it's like, oh,
Okay.
the song is still happening. I have to
That's
make sure that I got to stick the land.
all right. So. Yeah, it must have been such a good like realization that you're finally going to be on the show you always wanted to be. And now that you have been on The Voice, there were all these amazing singers, equally competent as yours, and who have had as diverse a music career. And did that ever make you feel, I would say, underconfident or anxious or worried about your own performance?
For sure. I mean, I think it's natural, especially given all
It
of these
is.
incredible performers, to feel that way. What I would liken it to is like being at a music conservatory for the
Hmm.
first. If you're like, if you've just been out in the, doing studying in the country and you're in your
Hmm.
hometown, and then you go to like Juilliard or something, and you meet all of these incredible musicians. There's
Hmm.
a natural sense of hesitancy. It's like you
True.
start to think about your own performance more than you
Hmm.
usually would because you're like, okay, well, these people obviously they perform at a really high standard. I wonder what
They
they're
do.
going to think of this
Hmm.
performance. But I think on some level, like it really comes down to letting go, like letting go
Hmm.
of the impression of yourself that you have, and kind of just allowing yourself to be witnessed for what you are, more or less, just kind of leaving it at that.
That's good to know. I was going through your Instagram. I came across your performance for Until I Found You, and it's a beautiful song, and it's my personal favorite as well. But your performance was incredibly mesmerizing, I would say. So, can you just let us
Thank you.
know, like, what did you really? It's one of my personal favorite performances of yours. But if you could share about what has your best performance on The Voice been?
I would say that the performance that felt most natural to me on The
Hmm.
Voice was probably my blind audition,
Okay,
in the
yeah.
sense that like it was a song
Did
that I
not
already
really have a
knew.
lot of pressure, and it was the first song. You just wanted to be your best there.
Exactly. You kind of just let it go and you kind of come in without. I think that was the song in which I was thinking least about the camera, thinking
Hmm.
least about the fact that I was on a show. But
Hmm.
at the same time, I think probably I hit my stride. I think with the Steven Sanchez song for sure. And
Yeah,
I love that song as well. Like the
it
guy
is
has just such this
beautiful.
natural charisma, this absolute smoothness to his
Hmm.
persona and to his voice. And I was really interested. It was surprising to me that he was so young as well, because he's a fairly
Huh.
modern
Right.
guy, but it sounds like an old school sort of number. But no, I had a
Right.
really good time with it.
Yeah, he like often reminds me of these retro singers who used to sing like have these old songs like something similar to Elvis Presley, and it's really beautiful, honestly,
Absolutely.
that song of his, and you performed it with such elegance and grace, and that was very beautiful. So
Thank
like
you so
what
much.
did your routine while going through the performances at the Voice like was like, how did you prepare yourself for the song? How did you mentally prepare yourself? How did you practice for it? And are there any pre-performance rituals that you diligently followed?
Oh yeah, I think that one of the biggest things was kind of saunaing, like
Hmm.
taking advantage of like just using getting into a humidified room before a performance,
Okay.
just to make sure that like your
Mm-hmm.
voice is properly hydrated, just on an
Mm-hmm.
internal level and on an external level.
Hmm.
I would always do that. I would always have tea with honey, and before
Okay.
a performance, I
Okay.
would go out to,
That's
as just kind of a performance ritual, I would go out to this ramen place in town the night before and make sure that I got myself a chicken katsu ramen that they did. Because I
Oh
knew one,
yeah. Okay.
I
That's
knew
lovely.
one of the guys who worked at the restaurant. His name was Yudi,
Okay.
great guy. But
Hmm.
he was able to kind of under the table help me get this particular item, which was
Okay.
kind of on the secret menu. You have to know somebody who works at the restaurant to get them to make it for you. But I would
That's
do that every time before I performed.
okay, so chicken katsu being somebody's diligent ritual is rather unique. I don't think I've heard anybody eating chicken katsu before a singing performance, but like it's good if it made you feel more relieved and better and more inspired for the performances. That's really lovely to know. So, like,
And in Japan, they have it before an exam.
oh
Like
yeah,
it's
it's
common
it's
to
it's one of those lucky. Like even in India, before you go for an exam, you put curd and like sugar with it. Your moms, they always make sure it's
absolutely
like a good luck charm for them.
that
Okay,
kind
that
of perfect comfort food that just gets you in the feeling that
yeah,
I can win this. Like
that's really good to know. Like now that you have been on one of the biggest musical shows of the US, and can you like let us know how has the engagement on social media and on public platforms also changed for you after your career with like after your stint at The Voice?
It's been very interesting. So I go into airports these days and I am
Hmm.
frequently recognized. Well, I think it must be the hair or something.
Okay.
But people do recognize me at airports and stuff and just at functions, which is
Right.
quite cool. People have been extremely kind about it. And I've been engaging with people on social media and
Hmm.
get like the booking situation is a lot easier now because when you're on kind of a nationally
Hmm.
syndicated program, you can get a lot more bookings in towns that you haven't physically been to
Hmm.
before
Hmm. True.
because they will have seen you on the show. So it's been extremely, extremely useful in terms of just helping to get the
Hmm.
word out.
So like more and more people have come to recognize your talent and they want to be looking forward to your individual performances, I guess.
Absolutely, yeah. I imagine they'll see something a bit different at my own shows.
So
Like I
is there
love, of course, I love the music that I did on The Voice,
hmm.
but I think one is never
Hmm.
truly at home until one's doing one's own material.
And like the show also had some of the most incredible and talented, I would say, mentors of the music industry. So, what are the few inputs that you have taken along with yourself after the show that you wish to be using in your career further on?
I think both of like I had different sorts of mentorship, I suppose,
Hmm.
from our mentors. We had so our first mentor, obviously we had our coach, like Michael
Hmm.
Bublé was an incredible,
Hmm.
incredible singer, incredibly supportive mentor. But Cynthia Erivo came in. She gave very technical
Hmm.
advice that I really took on board, just in
Okay.
terms of control in the higher register. It was
Hmm.
like I wouldn't bear repeat. It doesn't bear repeating here, but like in the context
Hmm.
of that rehearsal, it was extremely helpful to me.
Hmm.
And Cheryl Crow, like my interaction with her was incredible as well. She just because she was such a healing presence, like she's
Hmm.
such a kind and empathetic person.
Hmm.
I almost felt like I got therapy from Cheryl Crow, voice lessons from Michael Bublé and Cynthia
Hmm.
Erivo, and then therapy from Cheryl Crow, a fellow teacher as well. So I definitely
Hmm.
empathize with that.
That's really nice to know. And I think you must have definitely come across a lot of I would say suggestions and constructive criticism and worst thing like trolls on social media at times because I think
For
every
sure.
celebrity like unfortunately has to go through it. So how do you deal with like I would say like how do you deal with unwanted unsolicited opinions like trolls and how do you take constructive criticism like as a fellow singer from somebody?
I suppose you have to kind of I think, in particular, given kind of the way that people interact
Hmm.
with people as brands
Hmm.
through stuff like television, through stuff like social
Hmm.
media, it's important to be polite to everyone.
Hmm.
Like, there's no reason to create a rude interaction with someone, but at the same time, to be judicious about from whom you take criticism, because everybody's
True.
got a different opinion, and not everyone's opinion is well informed.
That's true.
So it's important to trust the people
Hmm.
who have a degree of expertise and to know exactly why you trust them, rather
Hmm.
than just kind of internalizing everything everybody says. Because if
Hmm.
there's one thing people are good at, it's saying things, and if there's one thing they're bad at, it's just about everything else.
That's very good because I have seen a lot of young talented singers who are hesitant to start their career, especially like being a like putting out their videos on TikTok and other social media platforms because they fear that what the reaction would be. And I think that's a very genuine fear to have. But if they hear it from somebody as experienced as you will, that I believe that would be like giving them a lot of confidence to actually begin with their singing.
Absolutely. I think one of the most important things is
Hmm.
to be able to put yourself out there because
Hmm.
that's the primary difference between like getting something like The Voice and not, or doing anything public. I think you have to be willing to put yourself out there and let
Hmm.
people see you, even if not everybody's going to like it. At the end of the day, people like there's no accounting for taste. People have different opinions of different things, and you have to kind of accept that about them. But I think if you're willing to put yourself
Hmm.
out there, then you're going to be able to find an audience of some kind. You have to really be willing to do it though, like actually engage with and talk to
Hmm.
people. I think it's so much of it is about personality. So much of it is about just
That's true.
keeping being able to keep a stiff upper lip and not crash out in moments when you deal with negative
That's
criticism. Like
true.
obviously, you're going to get a lot of positive. You're going to get a lot
Hmm.
of negative. Sometimes the performance is good, and sometimes it's not
Hmm.
that great. Like there are a million things that can impact both your performance and the way other people are perceiving. Because you don't know the kind of day they've had, and they don't know
That's
the kind of
true.
day you've
Yeah.
had. And it's important, I think, to keep both of those things in mind. As a commenter, to keep in mind the
Hmm.
kind of day that the performer might be having, because there is a
Hmm.
person underneath all
That's
that.
true.
But then at the same time, as a performer, you have to understand that people are interacting with you like the Saints. They're interacting with you like they interact with the Dallas
Hmm.
Cowboys. Not like you're not like a person that's sitting across from them. So you can't take it as personally, I think. Or for one thing, it's gonna drive you crazy if you do. And for another thing, it's just it's not usually meant
Hmm.
personally.
That's really profound because I mean everything you have said about how people should not let these things weigh down on them and must be definitely believing into their talent. That's the first thing to get with, and that's really good to know. So, what next on your music career? So, how are you going to try? Like, what plans do you have for all these people waiting out for you?
Well, I've got some interesting new stuff coming up. This
Okay.
month, I'm going to be releasing a new single that's part of a concept album about
Hmm.
ancient mythology, a sort
Hmm.
of soul.
Okay.
It's sort of soul and jazz infused concept
Okay.
album. But I'm going to be referring directly to the ancient sources. So I
Oh.
was a history major in
Okay.
undergrad. That's
Yeah.
how this all ended up happening. Yeah, I
That's
didn't
good.
end up on The Voice initially. I was in
Hmm.
law school, and then I became a musician, kind of
Okay.
almost just because I couldn't stop myself.
Hmm.
And this is, I suppose, a way of tying back my passion for history into my career in music.
That's really nice. Like you are combining history with your own music career. That's really good to know. And like if somebody was to ask you that if you were to go back to The Voice, what is it that you wanted you or you could have done differently? Maybe like to have gone further in the show or even won the show. So do you have anything that you feel you could have done differently and anything related to that?
Yeah. I suppose there were moments when I was a little bit too worried about how I was going to come off on screen. I
Okay.
feel like I could have been like it would have been worth just letting go a
Hmm.
bit and
More
kind of
relaxed
yeah,
or
exactly. Letting
enjoying the
myself do
process.
just do the song in the way that I'm going to do it instead of
Okay.
focusing on doing it exactly right.
That's really good to know. And before we leave, I would request you that if you could have a little performance for us on any of the favorite songs that you have had on the show, and that would be really good.
Absolutely. Let me see. If you ever change your mind about leaving me behind, whoa, bring it to me. Bring your sweet love in. Bring it on home to me.
That's so lovely. Like I don't get a lot of chances to attend a music concert, so I make sure that I ask the ask the singers over here to put up a little performance for us and our audience. And it was really lovely talking to you, Barry, and especially how you talked about how people should be confident in their own craft and not let unwanted criticism weigh down on them. And that's really good inputs. And I think a lot of young singers are going to take inspiration from you. And like before going, if you have any suggestions that you would like to give somebody who wants to start up a music career.
Absolutely. I would say even if you just have a fragment in your head of a song, just
Hmm.
record it on your phone.
Hmm.
And it doesn't have to be complete in one day. You can
Okay.
come back to it later. And as you write songs, as you create material and do the performance work, I think you should reserve the right for yourself to change it, to
Hmm.
let your mind change about your performance, your aesthetic, about the song. You should be allowed to change the song if you want to change the song. I think just allow yourself to grow and don't be so worried about other people seeing you as you do it.
That's very good to know. And thank you, Barry, for taking us time for us. And it has been a lovely interaction with you. And I wish you all the best. I'm looking forward to all your new performances that are coming up. And it was really nice talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me, Isha. You have a good one.